So today we are going to be focusing in on a subject that I find to be one of the most joyful things I could be doing with my life, and that is running Facebook ad campaigns for purpose-driven businesses and specifically coaches. Now, who in here gets excited as I am about Facebook ads? You. Are you lying to me right now? You're excited about running Facebook ads?
Hacking the AI specifically is fun.
You're a little bit excited about running Facebook ad campaigns? More nervous?
More nervous.
More nervous? Awesome. Have either of you run a Facebook ad campaign in the past? Awesome. You as well?
I hired someone because I'm too afraid of.
Gotcha. So you yourself have run a Facebook ad campaign previously?
I've worked with a team that ran it. I was not the lead.
Awesome. Awesome. So for everyone else here today and anyone listening at home, I want you to really have an open mind to some of these strategies I'm going to be walking through, and also sharing a client case study example, and not only painting a picture of some strategies you can utilize within Facebook, but holistically, what does this look like online in your online customer acquisition campaign strategy, specifically honed in with one of our clients who's in the coaching practice. So today's discussion is going to be focused in on 4 phases. The first phase, which is really going to be the bulk of the discussion, is all about Facebook ads. What I want you to be thinking about is what type of environments somebody is in when they're actually logging into Facebook. People are in all types of social situations. They're in line at Starbucks. They're at parties, and they're completely checked out, and they're trying to distract themselves. They're on the toilet, on their infinite news screen. I see you nodding your head, so that one resonates with you. So we're in all these weird situations when we're actually in Facebook, and we're not actually there with the intention to buy and find a product or service in that moment. So it differs from when you're on Google or YouTube. When you're on Google and YouTube, you're there on Google because you're trying to find best pizza shop in Carlsbad. You're on YouTube because you're searching for a how-to video. So this platform operates a little bit differently. And so from a psychological standpoint, you're appealing to people in a different way to disrupt their process when they're on Facebook and they're on that infinite scroll. The second phase of this discussion is then going to be about once someone actually clicks that ad on Facebook and they are driven to your landing page, what does the next phase of this customer journey look like to enroll that individual to actually submit their name and email to get something of value for free? The example I'm going to give you today is attending a masterclass, which I'm sure you're familiar with being in the coaching space. It's a really great way to educate and deliver content and then invite someone to the next stage in the call to action. Phase 3 then is going to be about, now that you've actually captured a lead, what are you doing to nurture that relationship up to the point of sale? And phase 4 is going to be about a discussion of the actual data you should be paying attention to. Now, getting a lot of likes, having followers, comments, those are great, but I refer to them more as vanity metrics because having a lot of likes and followers doesn't actually produce leads and sales. So we're really concerned with leads, which we consider to be someone who actually has submitted their name and email and they're actually on your list. So as an agency, we usually get a handful of objection questions that I hear in conversations with business owners as to why or why not they may want to be investing in a Facebook ad campaign. And I want to talk through some of these because I'm sure these have been going on in your own head, and I just want to address them up front with why Facebook ads could or could not work for your organization. And the first is, could this really work for my business? I want to share 2 examples of how this has actually come into our organization in the last 6 months or so. So I believe Sam Skelly, as she hasn't presented, she's going to be presenting in the next couple of days, correct? I think she's presenting. So regardless, Sam is an amazing entrepreneur in the Encinitas area. And Sam came to our agency last May, wanting a Facebook ad campaign to get up super quick for her certification launch program. So this is a $12,000 product, very high end. And at first, I didn't say yes to Sam because I really wanted to peel behind the curtain and see, did she have all the foundational elements of her business in place so Facebook ads could feel more like putting gasoline on a fire versus playing Russian roulette with your marketing spend. And when I peeled behind the curtains with Sam, everything on my checklist marked out. She has been running this program for about 4 years. She has tons of client testimonials. She has a way to actually deliver her service. She has sales coaches ready to take sales calls. She knows who her customer avatar is. She has a defined marketing budget. So everything aligned where I told Sam, I think this is worth the investment and the risk to see how many more leads and sales we can drive into this live launch for you. It turned out to be an amazing launch, one of Sam's best ones she's ever been a part of, and we're starting now phase 2. And now Sam is really hooked on Facebook ads and marketing because she has a defined system in place as to how she can predictably bring in leads and revenue to her organization. On the flip side, there was a client I turned out about 2 weeks or so ago. And same process, she came in, wanted some support on a quick live launch, and I peeled behind the curtain to make sure it'd be a worthwhile opportunity for us. And the first thing I discovered that she's been in business for 25 years, which is a great sign. But then I asked her, who is your ideal client? She had no idea. I asked her what her marketing budget was. She had no idea. I asked her about her last live launch, and she told me one morning she just felt like doing a webinar and no one attended, and she was bewildered with why those were the results. And as I dove in deeper and deeper with her, I realized that there are certain foundational things that she just didn't have in place for our services to work. So I'm a huge believer in starting out small, doing grassroots efforts. And when you have a defined product and service, you have happy customers, you're driving leads and sales in through affiliate traffic, then take the next step in this customer journey and dive into Facebook ads to diversify how your brand is actually generating leads and sales. So it's a long-winded answer for me to say Facebook ads is not something I always recommend for organizations. I think there's 100 things you could do before Facebook ads actually start to make sense. I've tried this in the past, but it didn't work. So I'd love to hear from you when you were overseeing some of that marketing in the past. Tell me a little bit about some of the results you saw.
So one of the things that changed was with the Facebook changes in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. It just threw all the ad spend out the window and caused a lot of just a lot of metrics to go haywire. And we learned that you really have to spend a lot more time training the AI than you used to, and we kind of had to just basically start from the ground up. So in the last couple of years, Facebook ad marketing has changed completely, which is probably the biggest takeaway. And you really have to train the AI and know how the AI learns in order to be successful. Versus in the past, it was a lot easier to just get ramped up quickly. So how fast you feed the AI was probably the biggest lesson we learned in the last year.
I love that. I can't get off this stage, but I'll give you kind of a virtual high five. And the reason I say that is, and this is actually be my fourth point, which I dive into what happened with the Trump and Russia and the data, and our accounts as well took a big dip for a couple of months. And that is the thing with Facebook ads, is that you need someone in there who's actually a professional, actually is up to speed on all the new features, all the latest hacks. And even if your campaign is doing amazing, there's going to be a certain point in time where there's going to be market forces, some crazy event you can never predict, like Russia potentially hacking the election, not making this a political conversation. And you have to make sure that you're on top of all the latest trends. So you not only can still scale your campaign, but you can actually just maintain the baseline of what you've created. And so with that point, if you have run ads in the past, I invite you to as well really think holistically with what may have been off in your Facebook ad campaign in the past. And it sounds like you've done a really good job identifying this. And hopefully I can point out some other things you may want to look at with really where the bottleneck is. With digital marketing, you can analyze every single data point across the customer journey. So whether your Facebook ads, let's say your landing page is only converting at 15%. So you may want to go back and look at your Facebook ad and check out what your relevancy score is. Because if your relevancy score is a 9 and your landing page is converting at 15%, that means your landing page is off. On the flip side, if you see your relevancy score is at 4%, that actually means that you're not showing ads to the right people. So that's how you can bottleneck exactly what's off on your online customer acquisition campaign and make a very data-driven decision with what's not working and what can we do to make this better. I have a small budget. Can this work for me? So the great thing about Facebook ads is you can spend as little or as much as you want. You could spend $5 a day, and we have clients spending $50,000 a month. It's really up to you and your budget, and you dictate to Facebook, and they won't spend $1 over what you say you're willing to spend. Facebook ads don't work. So to your point, I was actually, probably you're in the same boat. I was really afraid that Facebook ads in spring of 2018 were dead. This was no longer going to be the top social media marketing platform to advertise on. And our clients' data suffered pretty drastically from that was probably April-ish. And then I would say June-ish is when our clients' data started to pick back up. And I was nervous that Facebook had just become the next MySpace. And the thing to always remember, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, is that this is really just a means to the end. If you understand the basic principles of how to acquire leads and sales online, the framework and the mechanism is going to stay consistent. It just may shift with what platform you're going to be advertising on. And whether Facebook and Instagram is your ideal platform, whether it's going to be going to Google because you're a local business, everything here, the principles are going to apply. One of the things that we always preach at our agency is that there's no beginning and end with marketing, just ascension. To that point earlier, you're analyzing data at every stage of the customer journey. And this is data that you want to maintain at least at a baseline level, and it's something that can always be improved upon. So in the past 7 years, we've never had a campaign in which we just said it and then we forgot it, and it produced amazing results. This is something we're in and day out to make sure that we're generating a consistent ROI for our clients and really increasing that ROI over time. With the more money we spend, more money coming back into the organization. So the first thing I want to talk about with why we love Facebook ads as a great way to scale your online efforts is, first off, the immense wealth of data Facebook ads. So I want to share a little bit about Facebook's algorithm, and this may be a little bit creepy if you didn't understand this before I just unveil this for you. So every single thing that you're doing on Facebook, whether it's you sharing where you live, where it's you sharing where you live, the posts you're making, comments you're making, articles you're sharing, videos, all of those things fuels Facebook's algorithm. So that's why you're seeing ads that are really just reinforcing your behavior and what you enjoy. So I always talk about travel and the outdoors and business and personal growth and development. So I'm seeing ads repeatedly for those types of offers. On the flip side, I've never once in my entire life mentioned babies on Facebook. So I've never seen anything related to kids within my Facebook ads newsfeed. I've never seen baby products. I've never seen strollers. It's never been anything I've posted about. And I think this is a lot different and a lot more beneficial from an advertiser standpoint, because you're actually showing ads to people who have an expressed interest in that topic. Versus when I'm watching the Steelers on Sundays, I'm seeing ads for Geico and Miller Lite, and it's something I have no interest in, and I'm actually probably back on Facebook to distract myself from those commercials. The next thing is custom audiences. So I'm actually going to talk about custom audiences and more in the next couple of slides. But what you can do within Facebook is any data that your business owns. So whether that's your email list, whether that's your Facebook fans, whether that's website traffic, you can actually upload that data to Facebook, and Facebook will run ads specifically to those individuals. So this is really powerful if you're a brand like Patagonia. So I know I've bought products from Patagonia in the past, and I'm on their email list as a past buyer. So they segment out their list, they upload their list of past buyers to Facebook, and then run ads to people who've bought products from them in the past for all of their new products that are debuting. So if you're a coach and you have a new program that's coming out, one of the best things that you could do is just simply upload your list of past buyers to Facebook and run ads specifically to those individuals for your next product that's debuting. The other thing you can do with custom audiences, which once again I'll get into more details, is you can actually upload that data set of past buyers to Facebook, and you can create a lookalike audience against it. So you upload that buyers list, Facebook will say, here's another 1 million people who match the same demographic and psychographic information as individuals who've already bought from you in the past. The powers of pixels and retargeting. So I'm going to give an example of my friend Taylor. And he may not be speaking the next couple of days. His whole deal is that he helps authors and public speakers land their first ever TEDx talk. So you spoke a couple of days ago, I heard. So I'm sure with you wanting to speak on stage, being a TEDx speaker has always been a dream of yours.
Yes, and I actually changed my Facebook bio to say, and this is the power of manifestation, right? I changed it that I am a TEDx speaker.
Awesome. So you'll probably start to see ads from Taylor if he's doing a good job with his advertising campaign.
Yes, and if he's not, then I'm requesting your support to introduce me to him.
Yeah, I can easily do that after this, regardless. He lives in Encinitas. He's an amazing guy.
I may know him. I know of one Taylor, so maybe that's him.
Taylor Conroy?
I don't know his last name.
Okay, sleeve tattoo?
Possibly.
Okay, we'll connect afterwards. So regardless of what's going on with Taylor's business, this is something, as you just may have heard, some of the audience wants to be and will be a TEDx speaker. And so Taylor, if he's doing Facebook ads correctly, if not, he should hire my company to help him. Shameless plug for No Typical Moments, Taylor. And what he could be doing is he could be running ads for a free 60-minute webinar in which you're going to learn all the secrets to land your first ever TEDx talk. And so Taylor is running a Facebook ad campaign specifically to individuals like yourself who are mentioning public speaking and TEDx, and he can target all those individuals. And I want to share how Taylor could be doing a great job with pixels and retargeting. I may call on you as well in this. So say you're at Starbucks and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. You don't really want to connect with people who are around you, and so you go to distract yourself with Facebook. And you're on your cell phone when you're in line, and you see this ad come through in which it's, hey, have you ever wanted to be a TEDx speaker? Get this 60-minute webinar, and you're going to learn all the secrets, and you're going to book your first ever talk in the next 14 days. And you see this ad, and it's, this handsome surfer with a giant sleeve tattoo, and you're like, all right, I don't know what's going on here, but I think this is the answer I've been looking for. I'm going to land my first ever TEDx talk, and you click the ad, and you go to the landing page. However, right when you're about to submit your name and email, the barista goes, hey, you're up next in line. And you're embarrassed, you're a little bit ashamed because you weren't paying attention, and you quickly close out of Facebook and put it back into your pocket. Next thing we know, 5 hours have passed by, and you've completely forgotten you're on that landing page about to access the TEDx talk of your dreams, and you go to Google and you start searching for handsome guy with a sleeve tattoo, because that's the only thing you remember. And that's taking you to really weird parts of Google search. It has nothing to do with Taylor Conroy, and your dreams are lost, and you're never going to land that TEDx talk ever again. And that'd be unfortunate, wouldn't it? It was right at your fingertip. However, if Taylor had a pixel installed on his landing page and a retargeting campaign in place, he could actually run ads to you again. So within the next couple of times of you logging into Facebook, I would guarantee you would see that offer again. And then you can click on it. That time you're going to submit your name and email and get access to the free training. So if you don't have that pixel in place, you're not implementing a retargeting campaign, you're losing out on a lot of potential traffic and leads and sales to your business because we're distracted. We're not really present all the time, and people are on your landing page and they may not be ready in that exact moment in time, and they just need to see the message a few more times, and then they'll be ready to take you up on that free offer. And I want to contrast that with a really annoying example of how organizations use retargeting. So how many of you have ever been on Expedia.com or Delta, any type of airline site? And how many of you have just flirted around with the idea to go on a trip somewhere, to Hawaii, to Europe, and you're going through the checkout process, and right before they ask you for your credit card information, you click out. Yeah. And then how many times does this now happen where everywhere you go across the internet, you're seeing information related to trips to Hawaii? And it's a really annoying retargeting campaign. And I want you to just understand, as advertisers and marketers, you have the power of Taylor on one side, or you have the power of Expedia.com. And it's up to you to create a user experience that actually aids that customer journey and get someone enthralled and excited about your offer and your brand versus being annoyed. And the last point I want to make on this is owning your market's traffic. And this relates to the retargeting campaign. So I love Rich Roll's podcast. It's all about the vegan athlete movement. And so as much as I've tried to find another thought leader, another authority in this space, I'm honestly just annoyed with with having to go through 10 plus hours of podcast interviews to find someone I trust as much as Rich. And because Rich has a retargeting campaign in place, anytime he has a new blog out, a new podcast, I'm always retargeted with it. So he's always front and center for me. And as much as I believe I'm hardworking and I'm not that lazy, it's just so much easier continually going back to Rich for his podcasts. And because he's continuously putting his podcast in front of me on Facebook, I'm using that as my resource and my go-to moving forward. So now I want to talk about what we do with our clients when we're actually just about ready to launch a Facebook ad campaign. How many of you have ever heard of what split testing is? Awesome. So tell me, I'll call on you this time. Tell me your... Okay. Okay. How about yourself? Do you want to share what split testing is?
It's like A/B testing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Essentially, you have you take an ad and then you make one change. The key is you only change one variable. And
exactly.
Then you test two versions of that ad against a similar traffic group to see which one has a higher conversion rate.
Yep, exactly. So what we do with Facebook ads is we bucket our audiences from a targeting perspective into 3 buckets. We call them warm audiences, lookalike audiences, and quote audiences. So on the warm audience side, this is individuals who are already familiar with your brand. It's when you're running ads to your Facebook fans, your email list, and website traffic. The thing with warm audiences is that you only have so many people on your list, you only have so many Facebook fans, only so many people visiting your website on a monthly basis that you're eventually going to run out of these individuals. So what you do is you start to diversify your targeting. So you then create what's called a lookalike audience. And this is when you take all of that data, your Facebook fans, your email list, your website traffic, you upload it to Facebook, and Facebook will say, here's 1 million other people who match the same demographic and psychographic information as those individuals. So Facebook's doing all the customer avatar research for you. They're taking all the guesswork out of the equation, and they're telling you, based upon all the data we have on these individuals, this is the next 1 million people on Facebook just like those individuals. The third bucket we diversify our ad spend into is quote audiences. And you may be asking, why would we do quote audiences if lookalikes say that's going to be our ideal customer avatar? And to your point about split testing and you're coming in like mad scientists, you really just want to test what is or is not working. So we've had tons of situations where we thought that warm audiences were going to be the lowest cost per leads, and actually quote audience produced the best results. And on the flip side, we've had terrible quote audiences and lookalike audiences perform best. So you just really never know until you're actually in Facebook and seeing what the data tells you. So this is a strictly data-driven decision where you're going with what the data says and allocating money towards the audience sets that produce the best results. And quote audiences are when you're really getting into your customer avatars. So this is a man who's 25 to 50 who lives in New York City and Los Angeles, and he likes Tony Robbins, and he makes above $70,000 a year. And you can get very, very narrow and specific with quote audiences, specifically from that data I talked about earlier. We're sharing so much information with Facebook about who we are that you just can get so narrowed in on who you want to be showing these ad sets to.
I think this is a good question here because
yeah.
In the wake of Cambridge Analytica and a lot of the changes, have you found now that the quality of your cold audience data is much more dependent on the data that you're feeding from your internal database? So in order to get that quality, because they're not letting you use as many tools, but you found that, or is there any tips you have in terms of the database that you feed Facebook to find lookalikes that's kind of help your clients? Like certain quality metrics or certain things you want to look for in your own data or things you want to focus on when you're feeding Facebook, all of your customers or potential customer targets?
Sure. So your question was, let me make sure I heard this correctly. It's around the data that you're sharing with Facebook from your list and how does that parlay into your quote audience that you're targeting?
How does the data that you feed Facebook parlay into cold audiences? And since they no longer allow you to select as many different specific features, like from a cold turkey perspective, you can't just pick your groups the same way you used to.
Right.
What are some specific data points that you want to make sure to have on your own targets to better improve the quality of the cold audiences Facebook is feeding you. So what do you want to make sure you're giving Facebook to get the best results? Do you have any tips there?
Gotcha. I have a few things on that. So I would say, and I'm going to get in creatives in a minute. So I would say for us, a lot of this leads into having video content at the top end of the funnel. So I would still say that this is really just a giant experiment. If we can look deeper into the list and any data they have on their customer base, that would be ideal for the cold audience sets that we can dive into. So, and I'll give the example of, and this is the brand knowing their avatars. So with Sam, she knew exactly who this woman is. Like, it's her best friend. She knows this individual like the back of her hand. So we were really relying on the organization to provide that customer avatar research up front. On the flip side, I'll actually share, we have a client right now who we're struggling with finding those new cold audiences. And that's because he doesn't really have a clear picture of who his target market is. And then I'll get into the video testing we do. And I think the other thing we're starting to learn is how you actually warm people up with video content on Facebook, pixel them if they're watching a certain percentage of your video, and then sending them the next stage of the customer journey actually within Facebook. And that's the example actually I'm going to share in a minute.
I'm more in B2B and I don't use Facebook that much, but I'm just curious of the question of if you said to upload your sort of customer base or people, it feels like that's not what you're supposed to do, because isn't there like protection of, you promise not to use their data or not to, not
Sure.
to use it? It feels like there's something just wrong with that to upload it in Facebook when we know all the problems that Facebook has done.
Sure. So your question is about data security.
Yeah, uploading your
Right.
contact list or a portion or whatever on Facebook when it's exactly what we promised not to do.
So with the issue that happened in 2018, Facebook definitely has cleaned up their act with a lot of that data. The other thing with whoever you're uploading to Facebook, they've already given that consent. So you can't scrape the internet for random email addresses and then upload that to Facebook. One of the things you say is that these people have agreed to being on your list. And if you do read the fine print within Facebook, they do share some of these things. So the next thing is around what does a good Facebook ad look like from a creative standpoint. So I want to share a few examples, and like you mentioned earlier about split testing, you're really just changing very subtle elements of the ad. So can you point out what is different in these two ads on the graphics?
One's a person and one is that berries, blueberries?
Correct. Can you point out what else we're testing?
Color? Darkness or white?
It goes a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Contrast.
Nope. It's look at the copy we do.
Self-purchase versus live purchase.
Exactly. So these are some of the very subtle shifts that we're making in the ads and allowing the data to tell us what's performing best. Now, I don't have this data at the top of my head with what is happening, but you can see this is just subtle differences that we're making in campaigns and seeing what's performing best. And we can look at all the data and direct the ad spend to what's performing better. So I can get into the split testing process and how this flushes out over the course of about 30 days. So what we'll do is we have all these ideas of combinations between copy, graphics, targeting, video that we think are going to produce the best results. And at the onset, we have some hypotheses, but until we actually start the campaign and let everything flush through, we really don't know. And within about 72 hours or so, we're going to have a pretty solid idea of which ad sets are performing best. So you may see cost per leads over here at $30. You may see some at $5, some at $2. And once you redirect the ad spend, you're going to get it into a cost per lead that's actually right on par for your organization. And we usually let the ads flush out for about 72 hours. And then we turn off the ad sets that are performing poorly and redirect ad spend to the highest performing groups. The thing with this is that you may see your cost per lead, it's up here, and then once you hone it in, it drops back down to about $2. And this is why someone is in there on a day-to-day basis, because the next month it may jump up to $4. and it's up to you to determine why did your CPL just double in the last 30 days. So it could be anything from you need fresh creatives because it's getting stale for your audience. It could be because you need to diversify your targeting and run it to more groups. It's really up in the air, and this is part of the split testing process of what you'd be diving into. I also want to share 2 videos that we tested out. So with most of our Facebook ad campaigns we're running right now, video is utilized in almost, I want to say 90% of the campaigns. And as you can see with Peter, this was something that was done on a pretty low budget. So you can even see with these graphics, these aren't anything crazy produced. Same with Peter's video. It was more important that Peter had great lighting and audio. This is really just a iPhone style video that we utilize with Peter. And with this, I think it's ideal that you understand your brand and what it represents and who your ideal audience is. Because with Peter, he kind of appeals to the gritty startup coach. Versus if you're trying to present your brand as like the luxury Jaguar, doing an iPhone video by the beach doesn't necessarily represent the type of brand that you are. So it's super important to pay attention to that. And once again, you can tell with Peter, we just make some very subtle shifts here with the copy that's being utilized. And we're probably running close to 100 different types of ad campaigns for Peter at once. So he's a little bit of a more complex campaign that we have going on. So the next thing I want to talk about, which first I just want to show you what I'm referring to. And this is a landing page. So someone was enrolled in Peter and he decided to click that Facebook ad and bring themselves to this landing page. So once again, you can see this is done in ClickFunnels. This is a very simple design, nothing too fancy. And the only thing you can do is hit register for the training. There's no other option. You can't go to About, you can't go to the blog page. You just simply register for the webinar. And I want to go back to this to show what elements make a great landing page. So clear and specific offer. So all you can do with Peter is click on the free training. That's the only option there. You want social proof. If you actually scrolled further down on Peter's page, you'd see a few client testimonials. Excellent copy and graphics. I would adjust that language actually for Peter to be clean copy and graphics. Peter's brand is just very simple and clean. And you also want to make sure that who's ever writing copy on your Facebook ads is also writing copy on your landing page, as you want the brand voice to remain consistent. The last thing I want to point out is this being mobile friendly. So when individuals are on Facebook and we look at our Facebook ads dashboard, almost all of our results are coming in through mobile device. So it's really important that your website is mobile friendly, because you're going to be losing a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential leads if your mobile phone is not compatible with the Facebook ad. So I want to walk you through now Peter's customer journey. And the great thing about Facebook is you can actually do customer research and do this for every single one of your competitors. There's a tool called Facebook Ads Library, and you can see every single ad that's running for every business page at once. And you can just really reverse engineer this for anyone you can see who you view as a competitor for your business. So if you decide to register for the free training, Peter has more or less a one-click upsell here. So I love how Peter includes a video here, welcoming you to his brand. He walks you through a few steps, and you have 1 of 2 things you could do. You could click X on here and get access to the free webinar in the next couple of days, or Peter just gets right to the point. Because at the end of the webinar, he's making the offer for a free strategy session. Or you can just sign up for the free breakthrough call right here, right now, and not wait for the webinar. This is just what would be almost like a one-click upsell opportunity here. And I don't have the data to know what % of people take Peter up on this offer, but I think this is a great way to capture some more leads for your organization. What then happens with Peter is that he goes into an email campaign. So I want to share just some basic screenshots of what will happen. So this is a very high-level overview of the customer journey in which it's going from a Facebook ad campaign to the free webinar. And then before the webinar happens, you're going to be dripped some content to really enroll you in Peter's brand and what he's all about. And then you're going to have the actual webinar in which you're going to be offered the strategic coaching call with Peter. So this is a very high level of the process that you're going through. And I want to show you a few screenshots of what Peter's emails look like once you decide to say yes to his webinar. So right when you register for the webinar, you'll get an email that looks like this from Peter. I love how Peter includes confirmation right there. It draws your attention a little bit more in your news feed. And then Peter has an email in which he's indoctrinating you to his brand, to the masterclass. So this is the top part of that email. It has the unique link. He's giving you some instructions. You get access to the free masterclass. You get access to his free Facebook group and some other just basic things reminding you of this. And the great thing about reverse engineering any of your competitors is that if you just decide to opt in for your free webinar, you're going to see every single one of their emails. You definitely do not want to plagiarize by any means. At the same time, you'll really get an idea of what other people in your industry are doing. So I love that as just a free way to check out what your competitors are doing. Sideliners. So we call sideliners individuals who are not ready to buy right then and there in the moment. Now, this doesn't mean they're not going to be ready to buy in maybe 3 to 6 months. And once you take them through that initial email sequence, which is really focused in on attending the webinar and booking a free strategy session, you want to make sure that you drip those individuals into a whole other sequence in which you're continuously getting them engaged in your brand. And you just never know how long it's going to take someone to be ready to buy from you. So it's really important from you as a business owner to keep up that engagement, keep up educating them, and really continuing to position yourself as that authority and thought leader in the space. So when the time is ready and now they're ready for your services, you're the first person they think of, just like myself and Rich Roll. The last thing that we're going to be diving into today is some metrics. So like I talked about at the beginning of this presentation, we're really honed in on how this is creating high leverage for the organization to move it forward. So at the onset of all of our relationships, we're focusing on our goals, and we're paying attention to these 3 main metrics. These are the 3 biggest ones we focus in on, which are what is it costing to acquire a lead for your business? What is it costing you to acquire a customer? And what is the return on ad spend? So all of this is super focused in on, is this actually profitable for the organization? And I want to share some screenshots with what we're doing in terms of marking out this data. And I think this is a much better example of how we're really looking at the lifetime customer value. So this is the depth of data that we dive into with our clients. So you can see this is some financial forecasting that we partake in which we're saying if we spent $18,000 per month, these are all of the metrics and conversion rates we would expect. And then this is what revenue back to the organization could look like. And this probably looks really overwhelming when you're seeing all these data points. And the point I'm trying to make here is that this is really just a giant math equation that you're cracking. And if you know what it's costing you to acquire a lead, and you know what it's costing you to acquire a customer, it's giving you a really clear path forward of how you can scale your organization. And that is the end of the presentation. And once again, this is focused in on what are you doing to turn your advertising costs into profit for your business.